In my opinion, the hardest thing is to erase from your life a person with whom you have lived for 18 years. You shared every moment of your life with him, laughed, and felt sad together. And the hardest part is coming to terms with the fact that you can no longer be with him. Unfortunately, many people are chasing new sensations instead of enjoying what they have. It's been 3 years since the completion of our divorce proceedings. There's something profound about that, a testament to the strength of love over mere physical intimacy. However, one often fails to recognize this until it's too late. In what some might consider a fulfilling life, we shared the joy of raising 4 children together: Amy, Brad, Carla, and Daryl, affectionately known as the Alphabet Kids. Following Daryl's birth, I underwent a vasectomy to avoid extending the alphabet any further. While Amy and Brad are now in college, Carla and Daryl continue to reside with Mary, my ex-wife. What led to the unraveling of our seemingly happy family? We appeared to be content, engaged parents who supported our children in everything they pursued. Like many young couples, we faced financial challenges, with me working in a manufacturing plant and Mary employed at the local Walmart store once the older kids started school. The younger ones went to daycare when neither of us could be home with them, a compromise dictated by the demands of modern society. Reflecting on how our parents and grandparents managed when women typically didn't work, I ponder whether societal chains or materialistic desires are to blame. We crave possessions and instant gratification. Initially, our love life flourished, as is common for young couples. However, as our family expanded, intimate moments became scarcer. This, perhaps, is a universal experience. Time constraints led us to believe we didn't have the luxury for such expressions of affection. Looking back, the real issue was our tendency to take each other for granted. Our once passionate love life deteriorated into hurried encounters. While we reached physical climaxes, the emotional depth of our earlier days was missing. It became mundane, not because love had faded, but because we failed to infuse it where it truly mattered. Upon my promotion to a supervisory role, our financial situation improved. As the children grew older, occasional outings like dinners and movies injected a bit of sparkle into our somewhat lackluster relationship. It seemed like a phase many marriages endure, a period where love persists, but familiarity breeds complacency. One day, Mary came home and expressed her desire to socialize with her female colleagues from work. Given that our children were now old enough to fend for themselves, I saw no issue with it. This occurred approximately 4 years ago. Mary adorned herself in slacks and a blouse, looking lovely. Like many women, she was often concerned about her weight, but she consistently managed to look great, regardless of her weight. Upon her return, I inquired about her evening, and she shared details about the outing with her coworkers. While I harbor no resentment towards Walmart, I couldn't help but notice that many of the women there were either divorced or separated. I expressed my concern, suggesting that these might not be the ideal companions for Mary. This led to an argument, as she felt I was disparaging her friends. I never said anything of the sort. I defended. I just worry that these women might be looking for relationships, and you'll be caught up with them. Her reaction revealed that I had struck a nerve. We had been together for 18 years, and I knew her moods well. Curious, I asked if she had danced with any men that night. After a moment's hesitation, she admitted, "I didn't do anything wrong." Yes, I danced with a couple of guys, and that was all. Despite sensing there might be more to the story, I decided not to press the matter at that moment. She mentioned her plans to go out with her friends once a month, and although I wasn't thrilled about it, I chose to wait and see. The next month, she wore a skirt with pantyhose, and as I observed her getting ready, she remained silent. I informed her that I would be staying up for her. When she returned past midnight, I noticed she had changed. Concerned, I asked, "You were wearing pantyhose when you left. Where are they now?" "It was hot, so I took them off," she replied dismissively. "Mary, this is getting out of hand. We need to talk," I insisted. She requested that I leave the room for her to undress. I pointed out that she had undressed in front of me for 18 years and questioned what was so special about that night. In an unusual move, I walked up to her and grabbed her by the arm, something I had never done before. "Jerry, please, I'm begging you. Don't do this," she pleaded. As I reached under her skirt and discovered she wasn't wearing panties, she already anticipated my actions. Pushing her away, she started crying, her arousal evident from another man's touch. Well, I guess that explains the absence of pantyhose, doesn't it? I commented. I'm sorry, Jerry. It just happened. I was at a party, had a few drinks, and Joe kept telling me how beautiful I was. He kissed me, touched me, and I've never been with anyone but you, Jerry. The girls praised Joe, and I let it happen. No one man came inside you. You had more than one man, didn't you? I questioned. When Joe took me, I was on the bed, and a couple of other guys took advantage of me too. They didn't take you. You willingly let them all have you. Doesn't our marriage mean anything to you? Did you not think about me or the kids? Jerry, I'm sorry. It wasn't love like you and I have. It was raw sex, and I liked it. Barb, one of the other girls, is married and told me she and her husband are into swapping. I don't want to lose you, Jerry. Please come with me one time and try it, she pleaded. I needed time to think. My mind was racing. I told her I didn't want to talk any more at that moment. I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. We agreed to talk the next day, and I spent the night on the couch. The next morning, after the kids left, I dressed and went to work. Mary was still asleep from her eventful night. Unable to focus, I took the afternoon off and went to her workplace. She was a cashier that day, and her friend Barb was at the next register. Why aren't you at work, honey? Barb kept eyeing me. I'm seeing Jeff, our lawyer, today. I'm getting a divorce, I said, turning and leaving. Mary yelled after me to wait, torn between her job and our situation. Ignoring her, I quickly left, packed my belongings, and left a note for the kids explaining our divorce. I wondered how she would explain this to them, likely making it my fault, as she often did. I found myself at my parents' place. They were in their 60s and had celebrated over 40 years of marriage. I informed them about the separation from Mary, anticipating a probable divorce. I could sense their discomfort as they were fond of Mary, making this revelation quite unexpected for them. Needing a place to stay, I accepted their offer to use the fully renovated basement, complete with a cozy bedroom, a small kitchenette, and a living room setup. They assured me I could stay as long as necessary, since they seldom use the basement anymore, mainly due to their aversion to stairs, a sentiment that led them to relocate the washer and dryer upstairs after Mom's hip replacement 2 years ago. I may digress a bit as I share this story, as there's much to unfold. I understand your curiosity about Mary, the kids' reactions, insights from the lawyer, and perspectives from other individuals involved. When I spoke to Mom and Dad, I vaguely mentioned that Mary desired more freedom, finding it challenging to elaborate on her inclination to pursue relationships with others. I opted not to disclose this to my parents and simply conveyed that we had differing views on various matters and couldn't reach an agreement. Though my parents weren't pleased with this explanation, it was all I could divulge at the moment. Later, I consulted Jeff, our lawyer, who informed me that Mary had reached out to him twice already. I inquired about his representation, pressing him to clarify if he was standing for her or me. Jerry, she doesn't want a divorce. She believes you can resolve this, Jeff explained. Answer my question, Jeff. Are you her lawyer or mine? I persisted. I'm hers, Jerry. She contacted me first, and I accepted her case. I'm sorry. If you had called me, I would have been on your side. Please talk to her, Jerry. You're both my friends, and I hate to see you heading for divorce court. Did she tell you why I left, Jeff? Why I want a divorce? I inquired. She mentioned an argument about her going out. She got intoxicated and was unfaithful to you. Let's be honest, Jeff. She went out despite my reservations, slept with 3 men, and then proposed a partner swap with her friends. There's your case, Jeff. I'm reaching out to Sally Black. We both know she's the best in the business. I'll have her contact you once we devise a plan. Thanks for nothing, Jeff, I concluded as I turned and walked away. Sally held the reputation of being the top divorce attorney in the state, known for her tough and uncompromising approach. I knew several men who had faced her in court, and they all ended up with unfavorable outcomes. When I reached out to Sally, she promptly scheduled an appointment for the next day and advised me not to communicate with Mary until our meeting. Concerned about the kids, I inquired, and she suggested having my parents inform them that we would discuss matters in the coming days. Following my parents' conversation with our eldest, Amy, Mary called our home a couple of hours later, seeking to talk to me. I signaled a refusal, and my father conveyed that my lawyer had instructed me not to engage in conversation with her that day. He assured Mary that I would reach out after consulting with my lawyer. During the call, my dad expressed his confusion about the situation and mentioned how deeply hurt I seemed. Angry at Mary's attempt to shift blame onto me, I decided to confide in my father privately. I shared the truth and pleaded with him not to disclose it to my mom, as it would devastate her given her affection for Mary. Tears welled up in my father's eyes as he left the room, revealing his sentimental side. The following day, I went to work, notifying my manager about my divorce proceedings and instructing not to forward any calls from Mary unless they were emergencies. Immersing myself in work helped divert my thoughts from the turmoil with Mary. After work, I met with Sally, an elegant yet business-focused professional. She straightforwardly asked, "Jerry, what are your desired outcomes here?" In response, I admitted uncertainty, expressing my love for Mary, but explaining my inability to accept her chosen lifestyle. I emphasized my concerns about the kids and my aversion to an open relationship, acknowledging my worries despite believing she wouldn't bring random people home, an expectation shattered by her previous infidelity. Sally conveyed, "Jerry, many people experience situations like this every day. We can proceed according to your preferences. I understand you'd rather not have the affair become public knowledge, especially for the sake of the kids. You need to provide support for them, and we can determine the amount fairly easily. You have the upper hand in deciding how much to give or retain. Essentially, you're in control here. While we might consider using the affair strategically to settle matters, our ultimate ground will be irreconcilable differences. Does that work for you?" As my legal counsel, "I'll follow your guidance," I responded. "Now that you earn a substantial salary, and considering she's working too, we could likely settle on $500 per week in child support. As the kids come of age, we can reduce it by $50 per week. No spousal support will be required, and once all the kids are over 18, the financial support ceases. You'll also be responsible for their medical expenses. Regarding higher education, that's optional. It's up to you. Legally, you're obligated for the next 6 years, given your oldest is 17 and the youngest is 12. Are you comfortable with this plan, or do you have other preferences? What about our savings in my retirement package? All savings will be divided equally, and joint bills will be settled accordingly. Since you have 2 vehicles, you can each keep one. Your retirement is exclusively yours. We won't let her touch that. The house and furnishings are the remaining items. What would you like to do with them? Our house is valued at around $200,000, with about $60,000 owed. However, my kids reside there. I'm uncertain about the best course of action," I explained. "I have a suggestion. In cases like yours, where revenge isn't the goal and children are involved, I propose letting her keep the house until the kids are grown and out of the house, say around age 21. At that point, the house will be sold and the proceeds divided equally, or one party can buy the house at half its value minus the outstanding mortgage. She'll be responsible for half of the house payments. So much to sift through. Why wasn't I sufficient for her? 18 years wasted. I suppose we can go with that. What if either Mary or Jeff decide to challenge it?" I inquired. "Then we bring out the heavy artillery and bring up the infidelity. I'm quite certain they wouldn't want that. If they do, then we'll request custody and an equal division of assets, with no alimony, considering she won't have the children." I took the next day off, and Sally called Jeff, telling him that she had a proposal for him and Mary, asking if they could meet at her office at noon. Of course, Jeff hesitated about coming to Sally's office, but agreed, knowing it was a no-win situation for him. Jeff and Mary arrived simultaneously. I figured Jeff instructed her to wait for him in the parking lot. There we were at the table, Sally and I on one side, and Jeff and Mary on the other. Jeff spoke first. He was acquainted with Sally and wasn't pleased about being on the opposing side. "Nice to see you again, Sally. I know your approach and how you like to get straight to business. Before you present us with an offer, Mary would like to have a private conversation with Jerry." "No," I said. "She had her say the other night. I'll talk to her only after the papers are signed. Everyone here is aware of why I'm seeking the divorce." I looked directly at Mary. "If you're worried about your love life being exposed, please consider my offer. I think it's quite generous." Sally added, "Well, that question was addressed." "Mrs. Cohen, Jerry has made you a very fair offer." Sally handed a copy to Mary and one to Jeff. "He will cite irreconcilable differences as the reason for separation. As you can see, he has provided you with a decent income while your children are at home. The only debatable issue here is the house. I believe Jerry has been quite fair in his offer on that front as well." Jeff spoke again. "We need time to review this document and consider a possible counteroffer. Sally, I'll discuss it with Mary and get back to you in the next couple of days." "Jeff, just so we're clear on the matter, there will be no counteroffer. If you reject this offer, which I believe would be very unwise, Mr. Cohen will file for adultery and seek custody of the kids and the house." Mary glanced upward, tears streaming down her face. Sally, adopting a tough stance, played hardball, and witnessing Mary's distress pained me deeply. Mary hastily seized a pen, inquiring about the signature location without bothering to read the document. Her tears were unbridled, fueled by the fear of losing custody of her children. "Mrs. Cohen, please, try to calm down," Sally urged. "Jerry doesn't intend to harm you or the kids. Take a day or so, as Jeff suggested, and review the terms. Perhaps we overlooked something." I apologize for my assertive tone, but it's crucial to emphasize that we're proposing a generous settlement. Jerry is ensuring the well-being of you and your children. Please take the document, consult with your lawyer and Jeff, and I can revisit the discussion tomorrow. Sally offered Mary a tissue box. Accepting a couple of tissues, Mary glanced at me as her tears subsided somewhat. "Jerry, no matter what you think, I still love you. I had hoped we could take some time apart and maybe reconcile, but it seems you've already made up your mind." "No, Mary, you made the decision for me. You want the freedom to do as you please, and I'm granting it. All I ask is that you keep your affairs away from my kids, or I'll take them away. That's a promise." Mary resumed crying as she hastily exited the building. Jeff bid us farewell, assuring Sally he would likely see her tomorrow or the day after. Sally turned to me, commenting that it seemed I would prevail in this case. I countered, stating that there were no winners, only losers. I lost the only woman I ever loved, and my children now reside in a single-parent home. It wasn't a victory. We merely reached a fair agreement. My daughter Amy brought the two youngest kids to visit me at my parents' house. I was delighted to see them. They kept asking about our family situation, and I repeatedly explained that their mom and I were having difficulties and didn't agree on some significant issues, leading to our decision to get a divorce. I reassured them that even though their mother and I wouldn't be together, we would both continue to be part of their lives. I assured Daryl, "I'll be present at your games without fail, and Carla, when volleyball season arrives, you can count on me cheering for you from the stands. I'll always be involved in your lives." After hugging and kissing them, I shared my cell phone number, emphasizing that they could always reach me at their grandma's house. Brad arrived a bit later with a serious question. "Dad, did you cheat on Mom?" "No, Brad. I would never betray your mother in that way." "Why would you think that?" He explained. "Well, Jim, my friend at school, and Travis, our neighbor, both mentioned that their parents divorced due to infidelity. I just wanted to make sure you didn't do something like that. I love you, Dad, and I'm going to miss you." "Brad, you won't be missing me. I'm not leaving the country. I'll always be here for all of you. It'll just take some time to adjust to our new situation. The divorce has been officially completed, and I fulfilled my commitment to the children by attending most of their school events. During these occasions, I frequently encountered Mary. Despite any personal matters she may have had, she maintained a discreet approach. It's worth noting that Mary and I always maintained an amicable relationship. We came together for the kids' birthdays and other special events. The only understanding we had was that she wouldn't discuss her dating life with me. Our conversations revolved around the children, holidays, and my parents. No subject was off limits except for her romantic affairs. On a few occasions, she began to broach the topic of a male friend or something similar, prompting me to excuse myself from the conversation. The agreement Sally and I drafted was signed by everyone, although I wasn't present when Mary came in to sign it. Sally informed me that Mary found it challenging to accept. We had some disagreements with Jeff about which credit cards should be paid and by whom. I suppose that was his way of saving face. I assured Sally that if things got tough, I would cover the payments. Eventually, we canceled all our credit cards and obtained new ones in separate names. I'd maintained regular communication with the kids. They shared that their mom had come to terms with our divorce and seemed a bit happier. I inquired if she was dating, and they informed me she was not, though she occasionally went out with her female friends. I admit I cringed upon hearing that. I never had that heart-to-heart conversation with Mary. She desired the freedom to explore, a concept that didn't align with my beliefs. In my upbringing, you marry someone with the intention of building a lasting connection, not to seek new attractions. My parents were married for over 40 years, so perhaps we married too early, and she didn't have the chance to pursue whatever it is she's seeking. I never explored the realm of sexual encounters either. I was content with Mary. Looking back a couple of years, I should mention that I did start dating again. I went out with a few women from work, most of whom were divorced due to my age. I made it a principle never to date a married woman, even if she was separated. It was something I felt deep inside. I did engage in intimate relationships with some of these women, but it just didn't feel the same. Despite treating them with respect, my thoughts always lingered on Mary. It's intriguing how one can't simply shake off the past and move forward. I genuinely tried, but none of the women I dated resonated with me. My best moments were during family events when I could see Mary. One night last year, I went out with the guys from work to a lively lounge where women frequented. To my surprise, I spotted her there. It seemed like a ladies' night out, and she was sitting with a group, but there were no men around them yet. I didn't recognize any of the women she was with, and the only one I had met from her work, Barb, wasn't present. I approached Mary from the side to catch her by surprise. "Would you care to dance?" I inquired. "Jerry, what brings you here?" she questioned. "Just hanging out with the guys, waiting for someone, or up for a dance?" I responded, no, not waiting for anyone. And yes, I'd love to dance with you. Let me introduce you to my friends. She swiftly listed off several names, adding, "These ladies are part of our card club. Once every 6 months, we ditch the cards for a night out, and tonight happens to be one. So how about that dance?" We headed to the dance floor, and I held her close. "It feels like old times, doesn't it?" I remarked. She smiled up at me as I held her tighter. After 2 slow numbers, the band started playing a fast one. I've never been good with these types of songs, I confessed as I escorted her back to her table. She seemed disappointed when I left her there. "Ladies, it was a pleasure meeting you. I better get back to my friends." Walking away, something felt off. I didn't want to see if she'd be approached by someone else. Informing my friends that I had to leave, I said my goodbyes. Looking back as I left, I saw Mary staring at me. The next day she called, expressing delight in seeing me out. She enjoyed our time together and asked if I'd help plan Amy's wedding reception. My oldest daughter was about to tie the knot. It felt like just yesterday when I held her in my arms. It struck me as odd that Mary called the day after we met, considering Amy's wedding was a year away. I suggested it might be too early, given the distance in time. She explained the need for early reservations and planning. I recommended she reach out to Amy to make initial plans, and once they had IDs on paper, I'd handle the financial aspect. About a month later, I gave her a call to check on the progress of our plans. Carla picked up and informed me that Mary was out with friends. Although I felt irritated, I couldn't justify my frustration. After all, we've been divorced for over 2.5 years. Curious, I asked Carla if Mary frequently went out, and she mentioned it was about once a month. Feeling a bit restless, I called up my friend Pete, who, like me, was divorced and enjoyed the company of ladies. We decided to hit the lounge. Upon entering, we found it bustling with people. To my surprise, Mary was there, seated with a mixed group of men and women. Dismissing any concern, I decided to enjoy the night and find someone else to dance with. Spotting an attractive young woman in her 30s, dressed provocatively in a mini skirt and burlesque, Pete commented, "Damn, now that's nice. Check out those gals sitting by themselves." As I strolled towards Mary's table, she noticed me, her mouth slightly agape. I intentionally walked past her and approached the table with the attractive young woman. "Care to dance?" I asked her. "Sure, I like older men, especially good-looking ones," she replied, loud enough for Mary to hear. We got up and I held her close, my arms around her with her breasts snug against me. "I'm Jerry, and you are a very lovely woman," I said, introducing the attractive woman as Rachel. While dancing, I avoided looking at Mary, but I couldn't help but notice the men at her table staring at Rachel's legs. Playfully, I pulled on her skirt, giving them a little more to appreciate. The following song was an upbeat one, but Rachel and I remained on the dance floor, swaying to the rhythm. I was aware that this choice would likely affect Mary, as we had never danced to fast songs together. A slow tune followed, and I seized the opportunity to pull Rachel close, sliding my hands down once and giving her a gentle squeeze on the dance floor. She responded with a smile. After the song concluded, I escorted her back to our table, suggesting we might dance again later. "I'd like that," Rachel replied. Pete had just rejoined our table, having danced with another woman from our group. As I sipped my drink, Pete glanced up and remarked, "Here comes an attractive lady." Although he hadn't met Mary before, she was heading towards our table. "Would you dance with me?" she inquired. I glanced at Pete, pretending she was addressing him. "Jerry, answer me." Standing up, I said, "It would be my pleasure." I turned to Pete, introducing Mary as my ex-wife. Pete's jaw dropped as he recalled referring to her as a broad. While dancing with Mary, she questioned, "What was that all about? She was all over you." "God, she would have been all for it on the dance floor if you had asked." "Isn't that why we're divorced? You wanted me to be with other women so you could be with other men," I retorted. "Jerry, please, you and I never discussed it." I was wrong. "Look, Mary, you came home with other men's, and all you can say is, I was wrong. Maybe I should do the same with that other woman, and then I can say I was wrong too. Besides, we're not married now. When you went on your escapade, you were my wife. My wife. Damn it." A guy approached Mary and me on the dance floor, questioning her choice to dance with me instead of him. "You're supposed to be my date, and you asked this guy to dance," he exclaimed. "You're not getting anywhere with Mary tonight," I warned. Mary started to speak, but I cut her off. "Do you want to sit with me or go back to your boyfriend here?" Mary, furious, pulled away and returned to her table. I took a grip of the intruder's arm, cautioning him that if he tried anything with her that night, I would find him and deal with him. I let go of his arm as he retreated to his table. The two young women we had danced with earlier joined us at our table. We moved to a booth, getting more intimate. Treating women like this wasn't my norm, but Mary was watching, and I played along. I suspected Pete was getting close with the one he was with. These women were there for one purpose that night: to hook up. The blonde I was with asked if we were ready to leave, mentioning she was feeling hot and eager. I requested a favor first. Pointing to Mary, looking furious, I asked her to inform Mary that her wish for the evening was going to come true. The blonde smiled, conveyed the message, and returned. By the time she could stand, we had already left. We ended up having an encounter with the two women at Pete's apartment. In fact, we even swapped partners throughout the night. The sex was enjoyable, but the next morning, I felt a sense of emptiness. I realized what was missing: love. I had turned off my cell phone, and upon switching it on, found 10 messages from Mary. She was furious, using every name in the book. In one message, she accused me of ruining her evening, which weirdly made me feel good. Around 9 in the morning, I called her. She answered, still upset. She ranted about what a terrible person I was and how much I had hurt her. Then, abruptly, she stopped. How does it feel, Mary, knowing that the person you love is intimate with someone else? This is the life you've chosen. You're free to be with whoever you want, and I'll do the same. Love be damned. As I ended the call, I could hear her sobbing. Weeks passed without any contact until one day she reached out. Jerry, can we talk? I mean, about everything. I know it must have hurt to see me with someone else, just as it hurt me to witness you with that woman. I realize now that what I did was even worse. Mary, it's done. Move on with your life and be with whoever you want. I don't care anymore. I just wanted you to experience what I felt. Jerry, I haven't been with anyone for 2.5 years. The last time was a month after you left me. It wasn't fulfilling. No love involved. I understood then that men were just using me. I'm not that person, Jerry. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I can't prove it to you. I wanted to explain, but that lifestyle isn't for me. I realized it when Joe asked if I was his little slut. I hit him hard, and when he tried to retaliate, I kicked him. I don't want that life, Jerry. I want the life we once had. Mary, we're not married. I have the freedom to make my own choices. By the way, what happened to your friend Barb? I haven't seen her around you lately. They're no longer part of the club. She and her husband got divorced. They experimented with partner swapping, thinking it would spice up their marriage. However, her husband ended up divorcing her, and he and the other man's wife left together. 2 more marriages went down the drain. Wanting to shift the topic, I asked, how are the wedding plans for Amy coming along? You haven't shared much, and it's only a few months away. I know you're aware of all the plans. Amy has discussed them with you many times. I'm not afraid to be alone with you, Mary, I asserted. Oh, really? I don't believe you. If you're not afraid, then take me out on a date, she teased. I don't think that's a good idea, Mary. It might give the wrong impression. People might think we're getting back together, I responded. Mary, I do love you, but the pain of what you did to me is still there. I see it every time I look at you. When you cheated on me, you took a big part of my heart away. I don't think it's healed yet. I don't know if it ever will be. God, I'm so sorry. And there's nothing I can do. Nothing, she lamented. Jerry, I'm the one who ruined our marriage. I lost the only man I ever loved. I live with the guilt every day. I thought about taking my own life, but it's the kids who would have to live with that. I've hurt them enough. I was hoping that one day, maybe just maybe, we might get back together. I didn't know what to think anymore. I had never spoken to her like this, and now hearing her confessions, my mind was in turmoil. I wanted her. I loved her. Yet I hated what she had done to me and our marriage. What if she followed through on her thoughts? Was she trying to make me feel guilty? I needed more information before I could trust her. The thought of her taking her own life was unbearable to me. I used to believe I knew her well enough to detect any lies, but now I'm not so sure. I had to confirm the truth, but how? Occasionally, we all entertain such thoughts, but thankfully, we don't act on them. I had to say something to her, but what? Mary, I'm getting hungry. How about joining me at the Red Lobster for lunch? We can discuss what gift to give Amy for her wedding. All I heard for the next 30 seconds was crying. Then a small voice said, I'd love to. Now, Mary, you have to understand, this isn't about anything romantic. It's just lunch and a little chat about Amy's wedding. I understand. I could almost sense her smiling. I stopped by to pick her up, and there she was, waiting on the porch. She looked stunning, dressed in a lovely outfit that showcased her legs. I pulled up, and she practically ran to the car, getting in with a smile. We stuck to light topics, avoiding the heavier issues. She mentioned buying a dress for the wedding and advised me to get measured for a tux. Without thinking, I asked Mary if she'd accompany me to see how I looked in a tuxedo. I hadn't worn one since our wedding almost 22 years ago. She looked surprised, and so was I. It just slipped out. I was so accustomed to seeking her opinion when we were married. Yes, I'd love to come with you. Just let me know when. I couldn't take it back, so I told her the following Saturday would be fine. I needed to be careful. I might be getting myself into trouble. We were seated at the table, both ordering iced tea. We always ordered the same things. We had so much in common. Mary, there's something I need to discuss with you, and it's crucial for me to hear the truth. I assure you that once you answer, we won't revisit this topic. Were you serious when you mentioned the possibility of taking your own life? She gazed at me, a tear welling up in her eyes. Don't worry, I won't shed tears. I've had my share over the last 3 years. In response to your question, yes, I did contemplate it. I mentioned going out once after you left, and as absurd as it may sound, it was my way of seeking revenge against you. Revenge against me? I don't understand. I was utterly confused, feeling lost and abandoned by you. I know it wasn't your fault, but at that time, my thoughts weren't rational. I went out again to retaliate against you. It wasn't enjoyable, and when things took a turn for the worse, I decided to leave. That's when he insulted me, calling me his slut. I reacted, slapped and kicked him, and went home in tears. The kids were already asleep, and I felt like my life was over. I went inside, grabbed the entire bottle of sleeping pills, and was on the verge of taking them when Carla asked if she could sleep with me. She said she needed me. Holding my little girl as she slept in my arms, I broke down. That's when I prayed to God for help. A sense of calm washed over me, and I realized my kids needed me, and just maybe, you might see a positive change in my life and want me back. Her words brought tears to my eyes. Fortunately, our meals arrived, and we shifted the conversation, focusing on our food. Later, I suggested going to a movie, opting for a comedy to share some laughter. After dropping her off at home, she invited me in, but I declined, explaining that I needed time to think. Before she left the car, she leaned over and kissed me. I didn't resist. It felt right. Like I love you, Jerry. Just keep that in mind. She exited without me uttering a word and entered the house. Something seemed off. She had mentioned twice now that she engaged in the swap activity only once more, a month after I left her. I wanted to trust her, but the pieces of the puzzle didn't align. For one, attending a swap club necessitates having a partner. Who was hers? It couldn't be this Joe guy because she swapped to be with him. Where was her man when she was fending off Joe? Then there was the potential suicide, as she repeatedly claimed. Yet she only revealed to me about the sleeping pills. I wanted to trust her, but I needed answers. My major concern was where she went every month for 2.5 years and with whom. The kids never mentioned meeting anyone. Perhaps she was truthful, and I was being overly suspicious. All our spare time was devoted to preparing for Amy's wedding. I did have lunch with Mary, Amy, my son Brad, and Amy's fiancé Ben. We were on our way to get fitted for our tuxedos. I felt like a penguin, but both Amy and Mary insisted I looked handsome. Time passed swiftly, and before I knew it, it was time for the wedding rehearsal. I went to the church and did everything I was asked to do. No big deal, as Amy and I walked down the aisle, and I added some playful elements like hopping and skipping. Nothing inappropriate, just enjoying the moment. I recall the pastor mentioning that the following day would be different, and we might be nervous, so we should try to remember our parts. I thought, yeah, walk down the aisle and later say, her mom and I, wow, I thought, who couldn't do that? Afterward, we all went to the restaurant and had dinner. I made sure to attend. It was something I didn't have to pay for. Before leaving for home, Mary approached me. Jerry, I'll see you tomorrow. There was something in the way she said it, and I leaned over and kissed her. I don't know why, but I did. Perhaps it was the joy of the occasion, I can't really say. She smiled at me, and I departed. I arrived at the church early, as instructed. The bridesmaids and ushers were already present, and soon the guests began to arrive. Nervousness started creeping in as Mary was escorted to the front row, looking exceptionally beautiful. Her radiant smile struck me, and I couldn't help but feel a bit jittery. "How's my penguin today?" She playfully laughed. "He's scared to death." His daughter is getting married, and his wife has never looked more beautiful, I replied, realizing the truth in my words. It's okay, honey. Everything will work out fine. You'll do great. Just be careful not to step on Amy's dress. She reassured me with a smile. I went to the back of the church and waited for Amy. When she approached, tears welled up in my eyes. She resembled a younger version of Mary. It's okay, Daddy. We can do this. Mom told me to say she loves you and not to step on my dress. Her words made me chuckle, reminding me so much of her mother. As we entered the sanctuary, Amy and I started our walk down the aisle. I kept repeating to myself, "Don't step on Amy's dress." Tears filled my eyes as I escorted my little girl, realizing that this moment epitomized the essence of life, love, family, and friends. We reached the front of the church, and many had tears of joy in their eyes. Thankfully, I wasn't the only one moved by the profound emotions of the occasion. "Who presents this woman for marriage?" the pastor inquired. Caught off guard, I pondered. "Me and Mary?" "No, her mother and I eventually replied. As I took my seat beside Mary, she displayed a mixture of smiles and tears. Leaning in, I whispered to Mary, "I messed up one simple line, and I messed it up. Everything is fine, honey. You did great." Mary reassured me in a hushed tone. Throughout the entire ceremony, I tightly held Mary's hand, perhaps a bit too tightly, and she endured it without uttering a word, sitting there with a smile and tears. I was relieved when the service concluded, though we still had to endure the customary photo sessions. Moving on to the reception, I felt the need for a drink and promptly got one. The atmosphere was lively, with everyone enjoying themselves. Amy and Ben were praised as a lovely couple, and people remarked on how nice it was to see Mary and me together. Each time I heard those comments, Mary simply smiled without saying a word. As the dancing commenced, there was a special dance for the parents of the bride. Leading Mary to the dance floor, I started dancing, and the crowd began applauding. Looking at our children, all smiles, and receiving a thumbs up from my mom and dad, it seemed everyone was confident about us, except me. After the wedding, Mary asked if I could drive her home, and I agreed. Upon arrival, she inquired if I was joining her inside. "I can't. The kids will be home soon, and I don't want them to get the wrong idea," I explained. "They already have the wrong idea. They're with your mom and dad, sleeping in your bed. Tonight, your only options for sleeping are in my bed or Brad's," she added with a smile. "Are you going to open my door for me?" I made a spontaneous decision. She expressed her desire for me, so I chose to follow my heart. However, I was cautious not to propose, as I still had lingering unanswered questions. Walking her to the door, I opened it, and she invited me in. "Jerry, there's no pressure to marry tonight. The future is uncertain. However, I do want us to share an intimate night, reminiscent of how it used to be." Entering her place, we gradually undressed. She appeared to be the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She attributed it to my love glasses. That night we shared passionate moments repeatedly. In the morning, after one last intimate encounter, she prepared breakfast. "Jerry, I won't rush or pressure you. I'll be here for as long as it takes." Smiling at Mary, I left without kissing her goodbye intentionally. I wanted her to understand that while the connection was intense, I wasn't ready yet. Now I grappled with a new dilemma. Mary and I explored new aspects of our relationship, yet she had been without a partner for almost 3 years. Something felt off. I sensed it but couldn't pinpoint the issue. Everything seemed too smooth, too convenient. Mary hadn't mentioned rekindling for over 2 years, and suddenly in the last year she actively pursued me. I needed more answers. Returning to my parents' home, I found everyone had left. My dad noticed my unease and asked if everything was all right. I explained that something felt off, and I needed to figure out what it was. Despite it being Sunday, I contacted Sally, my attorney. I detailed the situation, and she found it peculiar as well. Advising me to maintain silence for a couple of days, she mentioned having a private investigator to unravel the mystery. Mary phoned on Monday, inviting me for dinner. I declined, citing prior commitments and expressing that I needed to attend to some business. I refrained from disclosing my growing unease as I struggled to make sense of the situation. Come Thursday, Sally urgently summoned me to her office during work hours. Upon arrival, she shared unsettling revelations. My suspicions about Mary were accurate. She was involved in a SWAT club, and her partner was Jeff, her lawyer. Post my departure, Jeff seamlessly assumed my role. Mary continued her lifestyle but concealed it from me. Curious, I questioned Sally about Mary's motives in re-entering my life after a year of separation. With newfound freedom, why disrupt my peace? It's all about money, Jerry. Over the past 3 years, she borrowed $100,000 against the home loan. Instead of owing $60,000, you now owe $160,000, Sally disclosed. Perplexed, I inquired about how Mary managed to secure the funds without my signature for the house loan. No, when you settled the credit cards, one was a cash equity loan. You could continually borrow against it up to a specified limit. Yours is nearly maxed out now. Your friend Jeff slipped that one past us. Once you agreed to pay the credit loans, there was no way of telling. I'm sorry, Jerry. I should have monitored that after the divorce was finalized. Typically, we don't conduct follow-ups unless requested, and Jeff certainly wasn't going to ask. Sally admitted. Sally, during the night I spent with her, I searched through the cabinets for her prescribed medications. To my surprise, I found none. Consequently, I contacted her doctor, who informed me that he hadn't prescribed any sleeping pills in the last 3 years. He also mentioned that Mary attended all her physicals, visiting every 3 months instead of the recommended 6. I inquired about her testing for sexually transmitted diseases, and he assured me she had undergone the tests and was clean. I silently thanked my luck for that piece of information. Covering the medical bills had at least provided me with some clarity. So, Sally, what's our next step? I inquired. The only outstanding debt is the house. We'll place a line of $40,000 on it. If she ever sells it, you'll recoup that portion of the equity. Unfortunately, the rest is a loss. Regarding the kids, 2 are already independent, and the other 2 are old enough to decide whether they want to stay with your ex-wife, with you, or with your parents. We'll leave that decision to them. Jerry, considering your plan to leave the state, you may not be a significant factor. They likely want to finish their schooling here. Thanks for everything, Sally. I suppose it's all on me now. Please freeze the equity on the house, and if the kids opt to live with my parents, transfer the child support payment accordingly. Returning home, I had an honest conversation with my parents. I made it clear that there was no chance of reconciling with Mary. Despite my father being aware of the situation, I recounted it as if he didn't. Mary had cheated on me, and while I had hoped she had changed, she continued her deceitful ways. If she had been truthful, perhaps we could have worked through our issues. I knew it hurt my parents deeply, but they needed to know the truth. I visited Mary's house while she was at work and candidly told the kids about their mom's infidelity. I spared them the details of the more complex aspects of our relationship. I had given Mary opportunities to change, but she never did. Even after our wedding, I discovered she was still lying. Forgiveness and trust were no longer possible, and I could not see a future with her. Now I had to inform them that I was relocating to another state. They had the option to accompany me, stay with their mother, or reside with their grandparents. Both of the younger children expressed their decision to stay with their mother. Despite the possibility of her having boyfriends, she never brought them home. Carla assured me that she never witnessed unfamiliar men at the house. The only visitor, aside from relatives, was Jeff, whom they had known for years. I couldn't bring myself to reveal that Jeff was one of her lovers. They all cried, expressing how much they would miss me. I reassured them that I would only be 5 hours away and available if they needed me. They were welcome to visit me anytime. "When are you leaving, Dad?" asked Brad. "Next week. Once I'm settled, I'll share my address and phone number. I love all of you and will support you in any way I can." I called Mary at work, something I had never done before. "Mary, let's meet at the tavern. I need to talk to you away from the kids." She informed me that she would be off work in an hour and agreed to meet. I sensed she believed her plan had worked and we might be reconciling. When she arrived, I initiated our conversation. Mary, I've been reflecting a lot. Due to Amy's wedding and our intimate encounter, everyone assumes we're getting back together. It's moving too fast for me. Do you realize that no one knows why we got divorced initially? I've looked back at the last 3 years of your life. Where's the pain? The hurt I felt when I discovered your infidelity? It seems non-existent. Yes, your financial situation caused some distress, but that was about it, she said with a hint of concern. Our night together was unparalleled. You engaged in acts we'd never explored before. I recall how you used to consider them too explicit, yet there you were, embracing them. It made me question where you picked up those new skills. Jerry, I can clarify, she responded. You assured me you hadn't been with anyone for 2.5 years. Why lie? You had your monthly girls' night out, and it turns out the women from work and your card club were also part of a SWAT club. So it seems you've been involved all along. Your involvement with other men led to our divorce, and you never stopped. Explain it. Go home and tell the kids why I left initially. Let them know your desires overshadowed our relationship. I've already talked to them. God, Jerry, you didn't tell them about me, did you? She asked. It's always about you, Mary, never about the kids or me. I informed them about your affair and infidelity. Jerry, I'm so sorry. You left me. What choice did I have? I'm a woman and need love. You don't want love. What happened the other night was love. What you seek is endless pleasure with multiple partners. Did you think I wouldn't find out? How naive do you think I am? What if we got married and you cheated again? Then it struck me. Your lover Jeff orchestrated this scheme. Jeff, how did you discover him? Oh my God, what have I done? What have you done? You've shattered lives, including your own. You lost a man who genuinely loved you and was considering reconciliation. Your kids still live with you, but you've deeply hurt them. You lie, you cheat, and now you want to take from me. The love I had for you still lingers, buried in my heart. All I see now is a deceitful person who'll engage with anyone. In a couple of years, think about what could have been. Your looks will fade, your kids will leave, and so will the money. You might still have a string of old acquaintances, and of course, Jeff. She sobbed uncontrollably at this point. Jerry, I genuinely love you. Please don't leave me. I'll attend therapy or do whatever it takes. I forgot to mention, I'm relocating to another state and leaving next week. Thanks for the farewell encounter. You're indeed skilled in bed, but I'm sure you're well aware of that, just like God and countless others. Farewell, Mary. Have a good life. I suspected Jeff orchestrated this scheme. Remarrying would nullify our old agreement, and Mary and Jeff manipulated me for a year for financial gain. Despite her monthly losses and increasing debt, she continued her extravagant lifestyle. It was evident she had accumulated significant debt. What a foolish woman. I eventually moved forward with my life. It stung for a while, but I was putting it all behind me. Did I love Mary? Undoubtedly, but her betrayals were too much. It's been a few years, and I've met someone new. She's a few years younger, gorgeous, articulate, and funny. She mentioned being divorced with 2 barely teenage kids. When I inquired about her divorce, she revealed a cheating husband. He wanted the so-called good life, you know, the include other people style. It wasn't for me. I'm a one-guy kind of woman. I also have to think about what's best for my kids. I told him to find a woman who thinks like that, but it wasn't me. We dated for about a year, and I proposed. Looking at me, she asked what the marriage vows meant to me. To love, honor, and obey, till death do us part, richer or poorer, sickness, and in health, to be faithful only to her. I can do all that except the obey part, I chuckled. She knew my story about my alphabet kids and had a laugh. Her son was named Aaron, and her daughter was Faith. We got married, and all my kids attended the wedding. Initially hesitant, they'd met my future wife before the ceremony. They saw the kind, gentle person I saw. Amy and Brad were already married, and Carla was dating. Daryl and Carla were still in college. They understood I needed someone in my life. Mom and Dad also attended the wedding and fell in love with my bride. They knew my life was back on track. My wife appeared stunning, small, and incredibly attractive. The idea of any man wanting to share her was beyond my understanding. After a brief honeymoon, we made a stop at my parents' place on our way back. I showed her around my hometown and the house I used to live in, which Mary had to sell due to her debts. Thankfully, I managed to get $30,000 out of it, thanks to Sally, my lawyer. Upon returning home, we embarked on our new life. It was a simple existence, but we found happiness in it. We embraced every moment, and our intimate moments were fantastic. We encountered only one issue, but we managed to resolve it. You see, my new wife's name was Maria. I recall her looking at me and insisting that we needed to address that. She didn't want me to call her Mary, so we settled on Honey. She made it clear that she didn't mind what others called her, but she only wanted to hear the word honey from my lips. I jokingly asked if I could call her sweetheart occasionally. She smiled and replied, "That would be fine too. When we're intimate, you can call me anything you want except Mary." She laughed. I'm not sure what Mary is up to these days. I've removed her from my life. The kids mentioned seeing her living alone in an apartment, and they believe she's doing okay. Regarding her dating life, they think she might be involved but doesn't discuss it much. They mentioned that she cried when she learned about my marriage. Naturally, they love their mom and keep an eye on her. She'll be fine, they assured me. I just hope she's left behind some of her wild ways. I suppose I'll never find out. I vividly remember the last words she said to me. "Jerry, I truly love you, and I want you to know that I'll wait for you. I believe you'll come back to me. I'll be here for as long as it takes." My response to her was, "Forever is a long time to wait."